All right, so starting off with the first lesson, A Course in Miracles is about miracles. So there's definitely an introduction, and I advise that you listen to the introduction on your own time because it definitely tells about the origins of the book and how it came into existence. So, and it's very interesting. It's really interesting. Um, I don't know what people believe in, but if you believe in channeled messages, like through people, this is what this book is based off of. And sometimes, before I had a tendency to be a little skeptical about channeled messages because you just never know. But honestly, when it's something like this that you can't really dispute, there's no contradictions. There's nothing that you could really dispute in this book. So I think it's not a matter of believing, but a matter of like it is low key common sense that we never like really thought of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes it's like how you ask yourself like, how is this possible? But then you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. This makes sense. But so I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first chapter 1, lesson 1. Chapter 1 is Principles of Miracles. All right, so number 1, the first point in this chapter is there is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. And for me, it's like, art it's about training your perception of the world. If there's no order of things, so to say that somebody waking somebody, Jesus waking somebody up from the dead is just as big as showing, the smallest inkling of love to your neighbor. It's like we can't necessarily grasp that because we're always comparing how big something is to another thing. We're always comparing our love. We're always comparing how much we give and quantifying it, and But this is saying that there are no order in miracles. Miracles are a natural thing, and no matter how you perceive it as big or small, it all counts. So that's definitely a relief. Like to do your part to be a miracle to somebody else. It doesn't require that you have a lot of things. It just requires that you love, right? Because it says all expressions of love are maximal. Just like in the Bible where it says no sin is greater than the other. That's because sin is getting off of the right track, right? So if our intent is to love and sin is not in accordance with love, it doesn't matter what you do or how you sin. You're still out of alignment, right? Whether you're out of alignment greatly or out of alignment in a small way, it's like you're still out of alignment. So you're not being judged on how big or how small your sin is. You're being you're supposed to take notice of how you're out of alignment. That's what sin is. So the same thing with love. It's like when you're spreading love, you're not noticing how big or how small that love is, right? Love is love. So if you show love, if you are a miracle to somebody in their life, then there's no order in that. There's no order in that. It just is. That's what we are. That's what we naturally are. Expressions of love. It says number 2, it says miracles as such do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is far beyond evaluation. Right? So when we're spreading love, we're spreading God's energy. And that's what matters, is that it's God's energy, right? As opposed to the fear that we live in, and all the ego, the judgment of the ego, right? It says, miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. Makes sense now, right? Everything that comes from love is a miracle. All miracles mean life, and God is the giver of life. His voice will direct you very specifically. You will be told all you need to know, right? Miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They should not be under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided. Okay? So when we get our mind right into right thinking, these things are going to happen naturally. These things are going to occur naturally. But it requires us to lean on God, right? If we're training our minds to be of a right mind and not as right as opposed to wrong, but right as opposed to not living from the ego, as opposed to not just using our five senses to sense the world, but actually rely on spiritual guidance, actually rely on spirit, actually rely on your intuition, which is that spiritual guidance that's guiding you. So once we train our minds out of the ego mindset, then we can live from a place of love, and these miracles occur naturally in our interpersonal relationships, but they're not guided by us, right? So they're not. So we're following God, right? We're following God, and we're following our intuition, our inner knowing. We're following that spark in us, and through that, we're able to live from a place of love in order in relating to other people, right? Which is also guided by God. So it's not even about you creating the miracle. It's not about you. It's not about the ego. This is the time when the ego is irrelevant, right? Because you don't give it that power. So of course, in Miracles is teaching you how to not give your ego the power, but to give your higher self in that and see from your third eye, see from the spiritual eye, so that you sense what's going on in the world, but you realize you're not of it, and you realize it's not the truth. So then you bring truth into the situation.